There's obviously manipulation going on, and it's really disturbing. And I think obviously that's what's affecting your channel. And I've looked at the numbers on your channel, and a channel that has, I think you have like 118,000, right? Is that what you said?
Yeah. Mhm.
Subscribers should definitely have more than 60 people watching a live stream. So the only way that there would only be 60 people is if your channel is not getting fed into the YouTube algorithm for people to see that you've gone live who follow you. Um, so yeah, it's like straight up like you are being targeted. And it's not just your channel, it's others too. I mean, we all know it's harder to grow on YouTube now, and you're starting to see something, similar happen on other social media platforms, and it's all targeting political content. I don't know if it's the same segment or the same interview that YouTube CEO said this, but she also said it probably was during that because it was during a conversation back and forth. She also said that they actually like for creators, for people who want to, create comedy or like a cooking show, you can still grow organically. But for political content, that's just not the case.
Right. And
So, yeah.
I think people need to think about it this way. Everybody has different views now. There's a lot of people who are a little peeved at Bernie Sanders. But if you think back to 2016, right? YouTube at that point was not doing this. Okay. There was not the suppression, there was not censorship, demonetizing immediately when you upload a video. Bernie Sanders' campaign and that whole movement would have not taken off without independent media, social media, and actually being seen. We know that the corporate outlets were ignoring it and showing, empty podiums of Donald Trump. But a huge reason Bernie's campaign took off, volunteers, donations, just exploding and gaining momentum was back then the Young Turks, other platforms actually covering it. And, I was on the road covering a lot of those rallies, and they were taking off on YouTube because they weren't throttling. If it was today, I don't know if that would be the case. If this was, let's say, uh, maybe not Bernie, but a different campaign, because it's not a guarantee people would see it. I mean, Facebook is horrible with this. We don't even bother anymore. Um, Twitter, I mean, I think I have 116,000 Twitter followers. I've been suppressed on Twitter for 2, 3 years. I think spoke with an expert who told me they're deprioritizing my tweets. So it's really it's a scandal, but it's also dangerous because it's an information war. Basically, it's an information war to try and stuff in people's feeds. I mean, if you look at the news tab in YouTube, the top trending things or the trending tab, it's like Bloomberg and MSNBC and
Mm-hmm.
CNN. I mean, CNN clips used to get a couple thousand views. Now they're getting hundreds of thousands, if not millions of views. I
Right.
don't think people suddenly are jonesing for Wolf Blitzer. It's just all they're being fed. And it's gotten to the point now where literally we have moderators in our chat who know when a live stream is coming that don't see when we've gone live. I mean,
Yeah.
so I think, some channels are affected more than others, but I've been saying for a long time, I think too many independent creators are still in the old mentality of like kind of living on your own island and doing things separately. I think there needs to be a lot more collaboration among
Yeah.
independent outlets. I think, frankly, you know, possibly a network doesn't mean individuals can't keep their own brands and separate Patreons or whatever. But at this point, I think it's only going to get worse because it's essentially been accepted that they're doing this, and it's hurting us, obviously, but more importantly, it's hurting communities that already are desperate for coverage, whether it's, the Amazon workers. I've been covering Flint for many years. That stuff's not being seen as much as it used to. Uh, these are already stories that aren't covered in corporate media. So then you're going to bury it in the few places that do cover it. It's very dangerous for a so called democracy.
It's kind of like informational dictatorship. Like, where we like to think we live in this country, like, oh yeah, we're not like these other places that have all these state run TV channels. We have all these different channels and anyone can have an outlet. But what does that really mean when CNN, MSNBC, and Fox News get to cheat? and get to be put at the front of the line and get millions of views because that's what's promoted into everyone's feed. Like even if I don't follow these channels and they still get promoted into my feed. And we know this is deliberate because you have all of these tech giants, whether it's Google or Twitter or Facebook, being advised by these US government funded think tanks. I mean, the Atlantic Council's Digital Forensics Lab advises all of these tech giants on what constitutes disinformation and what constitutes credible news agencies. Who funds the Atlantic Council? Like every weapons company that you can name. As well as the US State Department and NATO. And so in this way, it's like this loophole middleman, right? Because the US government isn't supposed to be regulating speech. But because these private tech giants are private companies, they're allowed to regulate speech. So what does that mean if US government funded advisors are telling them what's good and bad speech? I mean, it's just government speech regulation through a middleman.
Absolutely. And I also think a lot of people don't realize this, but we always talk about the revolving door, like politicians then become lobbyists, politicians go work on Wall Street. A lot of these Silicon Valley companies are like old Democratic and Republican Party hands. I mean,
Yeah.
executives at Facebook used to work for like the DCCC. Twitter's a communications executive with Twitter used to work for Vice President Harris. And all of these companies, I mean, Chuck Schumer gets the most money of anybody from Facebook. His daughter, I don't know if she still works there, but used to work at Facebook. So, it's really insidious, and it's like all these other special interests that have bought our government. Silicon Valley is just pouring money in to our government. You got Amazon lobbying for contracts and getting contracts with the Pentagon and the CIA. So essentially, you have quote unquote private companies that are very much in bed with the government. And you also have YouTube, Twitter, Facebook. It's just kind of fed into the tribalism. I mean, Democratic politicians are cheering on, uh, you know, getting rid of these Republicans and far right people off these social media platforms, and then kind of quietly ignoring, the collateral damage, which is us. And I don't really particularly think they care about, the suppression of independent sources, because those independent sources are usually covering them critically. So to me, and I would like to see this argument advanced by some politicians. Bottom line, these platforms are saying they're platforms, not publishers, but everything they're doing is editorial decisions. Well, I mean, the CEO that you played her clip, they are making editorial decisions about what is trustworthy, what is authoritative, what is borderline, what is fact based, what is not. That's not just a passive platform that's simply we're a platform and, it goes far beyond like terms of service. It is editorial decision making, but pushing and spending probably billions of dollars a year lobbying the government so that they're not regulated as a public utility. And they should be, because they are making the same exact editorial decisions that cable news stations make, the New York Times make, and essentially another part of it, the sites that they are elevating as authoritative routinely get stories wrong. Russiagate, um, Iraq. I mean, you name it. CNN, Fox News, they refer to as one of their authoritative sources. But those channels are not at all affected. They are being elevated and pushed through the feed. I also think another part of this, real quick, YouTube put all its apples in trying YouTube TV. They basically wanted to become like a cable news station online. So for that, they had to make deals with all these corporate channels from CNN, MSNBC, ESPN, whatever, so that they could carry those channels on YouTube TV. Well, if you're trying to push YouTube TV and that's your big thing, then you're probably going to favor these mainstream corporate outlets. And it's really a shame because for those old enough to remember, I mean, YouTube, when it started, literally meant YouTube. Like anybody could thrive just based on, whatever. Are you interesting? Are you, is your topics good? Are you covering a niche that people are interested in? Anybody could thrive. But like